And we are live.
All right, good evening, everyone. Is Danielle on?
I spoke to Danielle yesterday. She will not be on. She just wanted me to inform the board that the barn inspections have been completed and sent back to the state. Everything has gone without a hitch. There was no major issues or any problems at all with all the inspections she has done.
Good.
So that went off without a hitch. She did bring up again that she does want to talk about possible the keeping of animals, trying to find out when people have barn animals on their property type of thing, and
Right.
survey those animals in the town in case there was an outbreak on the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture type of thing.
Right.
So I'll be talking with her next week about how she wants to handle that,
Okay,
but she just wanted me to
Yeah.
inform the board of the barn inspections.
yeah, that's kind of a hard one to find out who has what. I mean, you get a new resident that comes into town and they move from a city area to a rural area and they're driving around town and they see feeds and needs and it's like, oh, I can get some chickens and have a little chicken coop. Couldn't do that where I was. But for us to find out that they have them so that we can account for them and we can help them if needed, there's nothing to trigger that
Right. Yeah.
until they have a problem and they reach out to the ag committee or whatever for some assistance.
One of the ideas I brought up to her is in the barn inspection tells you what categories the farm animals are and what she checks off on the book. I was thinking of like basically copying that on a form, having that form inserted with the town census at the beginning of the year, and they send it back with their census, and the
Good.
Board of Health
idea.
will
Yeah.
Yeah.
get it, and
Yeah.
I'll
Great.
give her a
idea.
list in September, October when she starts her barn inspections to
Right.
just go off that list. But it's a voluntary form.
Right, but that's a good idea. That could very well help us collect some information.
Mhm.
And maybe be able to help someone before they have a problem if there's something they're new to.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have an active 4-H program in this area. I haven't really heard of one. So we're not gonna gather any information that way.
Yeah.
It's it's a different world.
All right.
Great idea. though.
That was it. That's
Any
the
more,
update.
any more on that, the rabies shots?
I did speak with her about that. Colleen talked to the animal control officer of Milford.
Mhm.
Basically, usually when she comes to a post-rabies exposure, then that's when we would handle that.
Okay, so it's not a
It's not an
pre,
issue.
okay.
I'm sorry? Yes, it has.
All right, so we're gonna move on to topic number 2, the TPI report.
I heard from Karis this morning, town council. She has an long executive session tonight, so she won't be able to make it. She did ask for a few more days to review the material, so she says she did put us on for her February 14th, which is our next meeting, on her calendar book for her to
Okay.
join.
All right, so we'll table that for now.
Well, we do have the TPI.
The inspection, okay. Okay, so we can do that.
Yes,
This is what we're putting on hold is the feedback.
the feedback from the landfill itself.
Okay, I feel following along here. All right, I read it cover to cover more than once. Had no problem with it, other than the corrections that we talked about. Spelling of my name, only because it's a legal document. So I want to make sure that that's in order. Anybody else read it, have comments on it?
Well, I read it, of course, because it's in my bailiwick of things. And I see, I agree, because I think this is this isn't the town's thing. This is the trash that Ferrucci was right over there. Remember I said it was on the side and it was near the river, and this is much more in line with what I was thinking it would be,
And we're
Rather than the
fortunate to
other one.
have you with firsthand knowledge.
because
What
it
went on?
was, oh, yeah.
When you say it's in line, what are you referring to?
I'm referring to the picture here,
This picture?
this one right here.
On your left hand.
Yeah,
I just wanted, I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know if you remember when we were talking about it, I said it was on this side of the road and it was near, you could see the Mill River from where I was standing and the guy was giving me a ration of stuff, telling me that it wasn't groundwater, it was just water on the ground. Okay.
We've had this picture though for a while.
But this isn't the same one that I saw before. The one that I saw before was way up in the back over here near the house more.
Is this a revised version?
No, I think what you're referring to is the A, B, C, D, and E picture.
Right.
Yeah, that's what she's referring to.
Okay, a different photo. altogether.
Yeah, the
Yes.
scale is probably improved
Right.
when we got to this point, just like you mentioned when you toured it, that the tree line has encroached. So things look a little different.
Yeah.
Or the tree line is closer to the test holes than it was in some of those older photographs. So probably because everything has been cleaned up, everything looks a little more, it's a better representation of what it looks like today.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You know, and that's, what the best we have to go by. I mean, obviously the photographs and things that they have, the technology is much clearer than some of the documents that we were going off of.
Well, I would say this photo is actually better than this.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
no doubt about it.
So, and I think there's a plan, I think she's planning on possibly including this photo in the submittal.
I thought the whole package.
Well, this is the submittal to Kings McQuaid. Yes.
Yeah.
So that being the case, I think this is a much better picture to be working off of.
Right.
I would add, it's great that they've highlighted where the photos are referenced that are in the package on this picture. I would actually like to see if they could superimpose the well positions on the exact same photo. That way, we kind of eliminate this whole
Yeah,
undefined graphic, if you will. And now you have an actual 3D picture
Right.
that actually
right.
puts the actual wells on an actual 3D photograph.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
if that's, if you do that.
Well, I think this picture was, back in this was 10/20/23.
Yeah, it's pretty recent.
It's a pretty recent photo.
Yeah, I don't know who that mass mapper is. I would assume that's a program or a service.
Guessing an application they
Yeah.
use to take the photographs. Right?
Yeah, because it's obviously taken from above.
And if possible, if they could modify maybe through siding, it would be nice if they could, given that there's wells down this area near where Paul's house is, they could include that property in the photo. That's a scale problem for them. But I know that property is of specific concern to DEP at the moment. Given where the layout is and given the fact that you have a private property owner with a private well.
Well, originally it was all the same property at one time.
Yeah.
Or at least owned by the
It was
same,
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Jimmy owned that
house.
house.
Put the request in, right? We can ask the
Yeah, we'll
question.
put the request and I got it written down. Yep.
Yeah. We have an address for that property, right?
So the question,
26?
the question is,
Yeah,
can we
yeah, 26.
superimpose
Yeah,
the
okay.
well?
Yeah.
on-
Yeah,
so that we can-
Yeah,
where
Yeah,
they
okay.
kind of
Give that to them.
I just wanted to make sure I got the right question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just so they could do the same thing and
Yeah.
basically highlight where all the different wells are that we see on this picture.
Right,
Yeah, we can actually see them on this,
right,
because that tends to visually show that a lot of these wells where they're actually off the field area and kind of in the rough.
Yeah.
And that was one of the potential concerns Jim had about the land kind of growing in over time
right.
based on where those wells were located.
Okay, so we'll ask those two questions.
First question was about the wells, putting on the,
Yeah, and the other was about putting 26
yeah,
Bellingham
26
Street,
volumes on there as well. Yep.
if we can get that on there.
Okay.
Anything else on this report? Because I believe there is a time constraint on getting this submitted to DEP.
Well, I would just say on the draft letter, it's got a typo probably in the first sentence. Where she references the, describing the biannual landfill fund recovery system. Really not biannual.
Where are you? Where are we?
First page of the letter.
Right here, okay.
The draft in the very first, sentence.
Oh, biannual landfill,
Yeah,
final cover system, right?
she might have meant to put biennial.
Every 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll
Twice
question that.
biennial, Twice a
No.
year. That would probably just be something we could. Jennifer.
No?
Okay.
Yep. That was the only thing I saw in the draft, other than that. That standpoint, it was fine.
Colleen?
No, I don't have any questions. I agree.
Jack?
I agree.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yep.
We did have questions about
No,
the
that's
actual
excellent.
form being submitted, but I
Okay, no, let's move to the form.
think you addressed one, just happened to see that your information needs to be corrected.
Yeah, Jack,
Yep. Here.
Yep.
Notice they used a, kind of a different name reference, and not that it's a problem. They're calling it the Bellingham Street Sanitary Landfill. I guess that's appropriate. Never heard it termed that way before. But
Well, that sort of takes it out of the town of Mendon.
I guess it's probably more accurate, right?
Right,
Yeah, I agree.
It's the old
right.
Yeah.
town landfill,
Dump,
Yep.
Yeah, that might be just using a locus,
yeah,
you know,
right,
which is.
for
okay
a
by me.
reference. Yep.
right.
yeah, the only thing I saw on that page was there were 4 things. 3 of them two had to do with my email, 1 had to do with my name, and the other one was the address for the town of Mendon.
Yeah, they also have you as a chairman, not a chairman.
I put
I've
the,
never been called that before.
Hey, that's because you're so cheery.
Hey,
What's
I'll
it?
take it. Pollyanna's got nothing on me. All right. Moving along. Anything else?
On page 9. They may not, see, an issue, but I noticed in the first box where they talk about environmental monitoring requirements, the question is posed, is the monitoring of surface water, groundwater, landfill gas, and any other media as described by the department, including without limitation, soil and sediment, being conducted on the schedule established in the permit, whereas otherwise required by the department. The response there was yes, but also know that you don't do any surface water analysis. So I didn't know if that needed to be pointed out or if the rest of that paragraph kind of answers the question. Because they do kind of give a breakdown on the right
Right,
of the wells. But that was one thing that Jim had mentioned in our conversation, that he was actually kind of curious as to why there wasn't a requirement of surface water testing. But
I think I assumed that what was in the performance standard column
Yeah.
was generic.
Yeah.
And then on the other column on the right-hand side, that was more
comments, right, observations.
towards our particular facility
Yeah.
and what our requirements, or what requirements were put on us.
Right. Great, because the standard usually includes the surface water monitoring, but in our case,
they
And Mr.
they never
McQuaid.
requested it.
right,
Yeah. So. And then on the next one down, we talked about operation and maintenance plan. Do we have one?
well, other than just what we're doing now, so that would.
Yeah, the mowing.
Maintenance, would be a maintenance plan, just the monitoring of the wells and whatnot. I mean, that is,
Well, and the property owner mows it. That I know somewhere along the line, I read that had to continue,
Yeah, I just didn't.
that was a
know if we had
maintenance.
an Actual plan that's outlined that actually stated that.
Right.
Yes, there are things we're doing.
well, it's,
Follow.
yeah, I think that was part of what DEP required at that time.
Yeah, I
so-
remember reading it in some paperwork somewhere that the mowing was, there was a written requirement somewhere.
I just hadn't seen an
Yeah.
actual form.
Now, the things that the things that I haven't seen are like maintaining the catch basin, sinkholes,
Yeah.
things like that. And obviously those are areas that currently we're deficient in.
Yeah,
So that's kind of a new thing to me, or to my ears, as to whether or not we're required or how we're supposed to work with the property owner to get those things done.
I think once this is submitted, the DEP is gonna take a harder look at it and make that determination.
Right, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. That's the purpose of this.
Yeah, that's kind of how I
Mm,
felt the gist of it was
yeah.
And then
going.
Nelson
And
Rock.
obviously, if this had been done 2 years or 4 years or 6 years ago, then it would have crept up then. But, like you pointed out, Tom, for a while there, because nothing was being done and no one was knowledgeable that things needed to be done down there, we had to play a little bit of catch up. So we're a little late to the game, but we're working as hard as we can to make sure that whatever the DEP asks of us, we're able to conform. And they're agreeable to that. So
Yes.
right.
We're-
Very-
we're moving in a positive direction. Yeah, the only other thing I had was, again, my name on the back of the sheet. And of course, I'm still the chairman.
Nope.
Yeah,
That's, Joyce, anything else on that?
no,
Oh, fantastic. Look at that. What would we do without you, Jack?
You'd have somebody else.
Okay, so,
not as good.
That's right.
we need to vote on
Yeah, we'll
this?
start, vote on it, but send in TPI.
All right, so we'll, someone will make a motion
Mhm.
to, accept the report as written.
With the revisions that you guys discussed.
With some of the changes, yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is for the TPI report. There's no revisions to that.
Right,
Okay,
that's the
right.
other document.
Okay,
Okay, so,
Right.
I make a motion that we accept the report as read.
Without making any revisions?
Not for this one, no. Those corrections have already been made.
Oh, the correction was already?
Yes. Yeah. I told Alan.
yeah, I called Jack and I said, I'm doing my homework and I know it's being picky, but I saw this and because it's a legal document, we should, and he saw it once and then he searched the whole
Share and half, we're
document.
not sharing that.
What time was it in the morning?
In which case we can probably accept.
All right, so we need a second. All right, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay, so I'm gonna sign it
Yes,
and Jack's gonna be able to submit it.
yes.
Chairman,
Yeah, not
Today.
chairman.
Chairman.
Okay, now, we're still gonna request on this pictorial
Yeah, the draft letter
section.
goes with revisions, yeah.
Yeah. All right,
We need a motion for that.
I think so, not until we have a full draft, final draft in front of us.
yeah. Anything else on the old landfill? When we go through the budget
Mhm.
on the landfill,
Mhm.
I have some things that relate to this
Mhm.
that I want to make sure that I bring up. Thank you.
Yeah.
E.L. Harvey contract review. Understand that Joyce Textiles was added. No, good catch.
Please, one for you and Tom. So the yellow highlighted now says included waste, any hazardous waste and radioactive, volatile, corrosive, highly flammable, explosive, biomedical, infectious, biohazardous, or toxic material as defined by applicable federal, state, or local laws or regulations Now it says, including materials currently banned from disposal or transfer of disposal in Massachusetts by the Mass DEP waste disposal bans.
Any other questions on that document? I know, Tom, last meeting, you didn't have a chance to read that,
Yes.
and
Yeah, a
I
couple of
didn't read it because
additional
I didn't
questions.
realize there were a lot of changes.
Yep. Yeah,
So-
are there other things you had picked up that you talked to Jack about directly or?
Nope.
For the excluded waste, that was set, if it matters much, they, on, section 4. Item A, talks about 6 AM. Versus 7 AM.
Okay,
So that was under operating hours.
Yeah, right here.
section 4.
Family residential unit
Yep.
collection.
Yeah,
You know, I read that and didn't think twice about it.
me either.
Because Phil's always in town like at 6:45, waiting to start at 7.
Just pointing it out.
No.
That's very good. Good catch.
I mean, a few things that I noticed that under section 6 were, I thought we only had a total of 2 30-yard dumpsters. In this section, we have 3.
Yeah. Well, question B in that, this August event, what is that?
Well, all I can think of.
It used to be.
Yeah, did
something-
that go back to the 350th when we had the actual block party? Was that August?
That was in August at that time frame, at least the initial one, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's probably a reference to that. As you pointed out, since they also referenced 2 other ones, for 2
Mm.
other events, I just didn't know if we had a duplication here. Or if that needs to be, leave it alone.
yeah, I always thought we had a total of 2.
Yep, yeah.
On the last contract, they did bullet 2, but they also did have this August event in the previous contract as well.
Okay,
So they just basically copied and pasted it from the.
because
previous
usually
contract.
one of them gets used for hazardous waste day.
Yes,
That's
That'd
been
be definitely one of
customary.
them.
And the other one gets used for an annual town event. So,
Rock the block is,
yeah,
Now
I'm
it's
not gonna
become the other.
complain if we have a spare,
so it's kind of like we have a spare.
we have a spare, yeah.
you know, or one we didn't account for. So,
Do we
contract-
care, do we care that it says August event?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't think they're that immovable.
No, they're
Or
always.
whatever, if we, you know, August becomes September. I mean, Mike's been very good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when we had to dispose of all the old trash containers, we didn't have a problem getting a dumpster.
Yep.
And we didn't have a problem getting a second dumpster. I don't know how that all shook out. Did we get any additional bills for those? So, I mean, they've been very fair.
Yep.
I mean, if for some reason, you know, they said down the road that that was a duplication, I wouldn't hold their feet to the fire.
Mhm.
You know, they've been very reasonable and accommodating. I mean, they did the, you know, good job with the transfer from the old program to the new program. It seems as though after some of the kinks and some of the people that got missed from the third party that was dropping off the toters, that seems to have smoothed out
Oh, yeah.
really well. I know we had a situation on Blackstone Street where it almost appeared as though some toters were stolen and moved. And Jack made a phone call and they were in town that day and they were picked up because they're property of E.L. Harvey. So really, I couldn't go get them. And I really didn't want to go get them and have a confrontation with anybody. But it's their property. If they're not on the address that they're supposed to be at,
Yeah.
they have the right at curbside
You take them back.
to remove them.
Mhm.
It's that trailer we're having issues with on Blackstone Street.
Still,
Was that 43?
Or if you
Yeah.
want some, yeah.
So, you know, it was something that we happened to come across and E.L. Harvey was right there and it was all done on the up and up because they own them. So, I mean, that works out really well.
so, can we talk about, the 11?
No, we need to stay on topic.
Oh, okay, all right, because I just wanted to mention one other thing about that.
I always
too.
do that in other topics.
Okay, all right, good.
Okay, so are we good with the contract? We still have those few little things, Jack?
Are there any more changes besides that 7 o'clock AM?
Why are you looking at me?
No, I just want to make sure that we got everything that you found.
I did just have a question. Who is your dedicated contact?
Usually it's been Heather
Customer
Redmond.
service. I was just curious. It talked about us having a dedicated customer service rep. I just didn't know who that was.
No, Heather Redmond is usually like make contact. If I don't get anywhere with her, I go directly to Mike.
And do you know if we did receive the certificate of insurance from them?
We did, yes.
Takes many eyes to pick all the details
No
out.
kidding.
Any eyes, that's right.
No, it's not a small money contract, so
No, it is not.
it's gotta be right.
Only
Well-
doubles in the details.
there
It
you
is,
go.
it is a contract as opposed to like an estimate or a proposal. you know. And speaking of which, I don't know if it matters, they use the term bid in here,
In what? Bid?
the term bid.
Mhm.
Oh,
I mean, we know we really didn't go out to bid, but I guess could you still define what they did as a bid in terms of the presentation?
Well, the presentation was the bid.
Was the bid?
Yep.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, and we accepted it by,
I just didn't want anyone to get the idea that this went out to bid.
Yep.
Because a lot of times when you think of a bid, you think of,
you think
Being
anybody
present-
else is gonna read this?
was it?
And you're thinking someone else is gonna read this?
Yeah, you never.
that's right, you never know. There could be
Pretty
another,
Sure.
yeah, there could be a competitor out there that wants to make sure they get on the,
I
the
didn't
list
mean
for
as
next
far
time
as
round.
competitors go, I meant as far as residents go.
oh,
We do have a handful of residents that do like to
Nitpick.
review some documents occasionally.
well, I
So
think
I
that's a plus to having the meetings recorded and archived. Because you could go back through the meetings,
Yes.
you know,
correct.
find the period of time where we were discussing the contract. You know, for the next 5 years as to how we were gonna handle it,
Yes.
and they can get it firsthand.
I just want to make sure some people, when you think bid, you think there was a process competing for a service or whatever, that's all.
Okay,
I'm fine.
so we got those few little
Just the one.
changes, right? Just the 7?
Yeah.
All right, so do we have a copy that you want me to sign?
Well, I'll make this change tomorrow.
Yeah,
If you want to sign all three sign the last page,
yeah.
if you guys go with it, but have a vote on that.
Okay, so we're gonna vote we're gonna need a motion to accept the document as written with the,
Contract,
One-time change.
with the
Right.
one change.
right.
So we need a motion and a second.
I move we accept the contract as written with in the correction of the time. And
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye,
All right, I'll have Tom sign first.
perfect.
Thank you.
Just so we can move that along before we have a birthday.
What?
Well, July 1st, 2023.
Exactly.
July 1st, 2024. It's gonna come
Yeah.
quicker than we like it to.
Now the thing is,
ding.
Thank you, everybody, for reading that through and trying to catch everything we can. Thank you, Jack. All right. Moving right along, unless somebody has something else on that contract. All right. We're gonna, the annual town meeting warrant for municipal trash program, Jack.
I'll leave that to Colleen.
So I drafted the warrant article. I mean, it's pretty short. The requirement for a warrant article is to rely upon the statute, the regulation or the bylaw that, for the reason why you're asking the residents to vote. And also for the timeframe for performance. When is it going to take effect? So this is pretty standard language for any type of a warrant article, and it's basically to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of chapter 44, section 53 F and a half of the Massachusetts general laws. Now, that's the law that allows a town to establish an enterprise fund. Okay? Establishing the municipal curbside trash and recycling service as an enterprise fund. Effective fiscal year 2025, or to take any other action related thereto. That's the warrant article, and then it would be up to yourself as the chair. You're the salesman. You stand up and you sell it to the residents, and the reasons for it, it's for clearer accounting, the separation between residential and commercial services, and all of the financial responsibilities and reporting that goes along with the requirements underneath Mass General Law 44. There's a whole list of accounting that takes place, that has to take place. It's the same as, as the general fund, but specific to this, to curbside trash and recycling. And then whatever surpluses that we have in that account get turned into retained earnings. So you would have a running balance of retained earnings, as opposed to the way it is right now in the general fund. At the end of the year, if there's any surplus, that's right. So
Right.
now we're removing it from the general fund and we're putting it and establishing an enterprise fund.
Okay, so in the annual town report in the financial section, that would probably have its own
Yes.
page
Yes,
now? Okay.
yes. Yep, and all the expenses that are associated with the maintaining of the service itself, the municipal service itself.
Okay. Everybody good with that? I mean, obviously, we've heard that, most of that language before. Uh, the
Yeah.
standard,
Yeah, it's
Stuff.
nice to have council review it. I
Right.
mean, but it's pretty standard language. You keep it simple and concise as possible, and then the salesman
yeah, explain it.
sells. Yep. Yep, and answers any questions. And we'll be bound by this guide that,
Yeah,
Right.
this in here basically is the meat and potatoes of how the accounting will take place. In the town accountant will assist with, with the financial component of it. It's not something that now the board has to take on themselves. This is just pretty standard
Right.
accounting principles.
yeah, I'm sure once, like everything else, once you get it established and you get through year one, year two, year three, get a little easier because the processes are already in place.
Exactly. And then it's just a matter of, as you go along, to, reallocate whatever expenses that are relative to bringing the service to the residents. You can take a portion of, of anybody's salary that works in the office. Jack in particular, I would find it hard pressed to take the health agent salary and put it into the enterprise account, but a portion of Jack's for sure, whatever that percentage is, which would offset, would be removed from the general fund account. So that would be a savings on the GF side and an expense to the enterprise account. But it would be supported by the receipts that we receive for delivering the service.
So let's just, for example, use Jack's salary. That would be a percentage that would be annual.
Mhm.
Because as we had a discussion, there are peaks and valleys in the amount of time that you would spend on trash. And it could even change when it comes time to, at the 5-year point, well, actually year 4, when you're getting ready to enter into a new contract or put out for bid or whatever you're doing, the amount of time you'd spend would bump up a little to
Right.
handle that.
Mhm.
And then it would mellow out again. So you'd be looking for an average.
Right. And that would be it would be fixed.
Right.
So if you determine, 15% of Jack's salaries dedicated to the municipal trash and recycling curbside program, that would be a fixed percentage.
Okay. And it's my understanding when I read this is that's a collaborative
Mhm.
number.
Mhm.
You have to be in agreement with, I believe, if I'm reading it correctly, the tax collector.
Yep.
So,
Well, yeah, and then the allocation, like, for, as far as the benefit package goes too. The other thing too, so just so the board is aware, is that, should the board choose to go down the road of the enterprise fund account, the minimum, you have to stay in this enterprise fund account for 3 years. If after that time frame you decide that, you know what, we don't want to do this anymore, we want to go back into the general fund, then there would be a warrant article to dispense with the enterprise fund. But just so that the board knows that it's a 3-year term.
the enterprise account seems a lot more complicated than a revolving account.
Well, a revolving account, it's going to be a fixed amount of money up to X amount
there's
of
a cap.
dollars. Right, so with an enterprise account, it's, it's all of the receipts, and in a revolving account, you can't keep the retained earnings.
Why not?
I have to double check, so I don't want to
I
say,
think you can only keep up to that limit.
right,
So like
Right.
the Parks Department, for example, I believe has a revolving account for the fields and the beach area of 125,000.
mhm,
And I believe the reasoning was, again, to try to retain some of the fees that they collect, some of the monies that they're paid to continue to reinvest it in more programming. So they set a limit of 125. Now, if for some reason there was a day that, or a particular accounting period that there was 130 in there, then that 5,000 would go into the general fund.
correct, and that's why,
Right.
right, and that's the difference between a revolving and an enterprise. I think the enterprise account for this type of municipal service is a more efficient tool to use than the revolving account.
Okay, it just seems, when you read the rules that you have to go by, it seems like a lot of accounting.
No, not really. It's really not. It's not, don't let it overwhelm you. And honestly, it's actually going to be easier for the accountant in an enterprise account as opposed to in the general fund, for them to account for the efficiencies and or deficiencies in the service itself. It does, and I agree with you as far as if you read this, you're like, holy mother of the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah,
Right,
it's like, how many
yeah.
times am I gonna read
But
it?
it's
And
not.
I
It's
lost
more-
my thought.
Yeah, it's more efficient accounting, really. And it's not like, we're not doing the accounting. The accountant is doing that. He's very familiar, or she's very familiar with the policies and procedures that are associated with an enterprise account.
And they're trying to cover every single thing,
Absolutely.
every nook and cranny,
And that's more,
Right.
more efficient
right.
accounting.
And that's what their job is.
Right.
And our job is just to have that money in there and be able to use it and not have it
And then
stay.
have the retained earnings, so that's your savings account, so then you could take that money, say like there's a spike in 1 year, in services, and the costs are, you could use some of those retained earnings, it would have to go through a warrant article, but you could use some of those retained earnings to offset the expenses of the program.
Yeah,
as well.
our initial thought was, when we sit down to set the subscriber fee for the next year, if there's money still in the account, then we can lower that subscriber fee. But you're saying that we need to make a warrant?
You would have to, you're right, it would still have to be by warrant article, so you would have to write an article similar, very short and sweet like this, that you want to use, $1,000 in retained earnings transferred into the FY 25 operating expenses for the curbside municipal and recycling program.
And that's how we would reduce what the
Correct.
subscribers had to kick
Yep.
in.
Yep.
Because that was really why we were doing it, was to try to keep the subscriber rate as reasonable as possible. But by losing sticker money
Mhm.
and all these monies going into the general fund, there's never going to be an opportunity unless rates go down and contracts go lower, which we know isn't gonna happen, to, you know, say, hey, you know, we've got, you know, $10,000, we can lower everybody's bill by $5.
Exactly.
You know, it's not huge, but it shows that.
We're
what-
paying
what-
attention.
Right, and whenever we can, we're trying to keep that fee as reasonable as possible.
And that's why, that's the, you know, the need to separate the service from the GF. And to create the enterprise account so that you can do exactly what you just said. So now you'll have a clearer picture. You'll actually see your receipts and your expenses clearer.
Now, as I was reading through here, I read somewhere that it almost sounded as though you didn't have to worry if there was a shortfall. And
If you
didn't-
have a shortfall in the account and you don't have any retained earnings, then you're gonna have to create a warrant article and go to the town meeting to ask if it's $5,000 shortfall, saying you don't have retained earnings for that.
All right, does an enterprise fund have to fully recover its costs through user fees? No, budget-wise, an enterprise fund may be self-sufficient, or it may budget a surplus or subsidy.
But if you don't have any retained earnings to subsidize whatever that increase is, then you would have to write a warrant article and go to town meeting and ask for a transfer of whatever that deficiency is into the enterprise account from the GF.
The only concern I would have with that, though, is in the timing and when that all happens. The time when we generate bills, send out what the subscribers are supposed to pay to actually when the warrant would actually be read.
Yeah, but they have a special town meeting to clean up prior year fiscal year.
So
Yeah,
ideally,
That's right.
we'd have to know that, but the STM typically is in the fall,
Right,
November, right?
right. Well, that's because you have to do it in the fall because the fiscal year ends on June 30th.
Yep.
You don't realize then where your deficiencies are. They need time to figure that out. And then clear the GF, balance the GF, and then you say, oh, okay, now we have to go to the special town meeting. We had $5,000 deficit in, you know, whatever department it is.
Yeah.
That's, and so this would follow that same path.
Yeah, like, you know, bills of a prior year
Exactly.
type thing that you gotta clean up. So that really isn't that bad, because June to November, we'd have a pretty good picture as to how we were performing on a
I'm not so
monthly
much worried
basis.
about a deficit. I don't think we'd experience a deficit if we budget correctly.
We've been very fortunate. I think the thing that could cause us some grief in setting the fee accurately and not setting it too high to cover the what ifs, is the cost of recycling.
Well,
Now, in the contract, it's mapped out.
well, it's a variable. We'll have to, that's a discussion point when we go through the budget. Because I think, and you can confirm this or not, the rate that was presented to us for the first couple of years, I think the bills on a regular basis have been higher. Is
Okay.
that correct?
So
Yes.
they've been higher than the 110.
Yes.
So that's something we'll have to,
Right,
That'll
so
be
that's why I
implemented.
said that's the variable.
Right.
We know the trucking is fixed.
Yeah.
We know Wheeler Breda, we have a forecast for a number of years. So unless the tonnage were to go wacky, we do pretty good there. It's that recycling variable cost
Mhm.
that could mess us
and
up.
what I'm trying to get at is, and I think you were presented any kind of, we have to do something at annual town or a special town meeting via a warrant or money allocation. So even if we had a surplus in the account.
Only if you want to use the retained earnings. See, any surplus, right, any surplus that's in the account
Yeah.
will automatically be held as retained earnings. You don't have to go to a town meeting for that. It's if you want to spend those retained earnings, now you have to go to a meeting for that.
Okay, so like item 28 on the list of questions, can retained earnings be used to reduce rates? It says yes. It doesn't actually go into your description. It's yes, but based on what you're saying would have to be done to
The
do
vehicle is town meeting.
the vehicles town meeting.
Yeah.
So we couldn't automatically.
No,
So what we'd end up having is we'd have a little bit of maybe a time lapse where we could apply a potential save,
right.
right? So instead of being able to apply it right away in a July bill,
Yeah,
because it would happen, sounds like theoretically at a special town meeting in November, we probably couldn't apply it until the next bill cycle. Is what I,
It could be at an annual too. It just,
no, what I'm getting at is I would want to apply the potential savings as quickly as possible and as specific to the billing period as possible. But it sounds like in this case, we really wouldn't be able to do that because of a timeline difference between when we could get something moved through a special town meeting or an annual town meeting versus when the bills are generated and the receipts are received.
Yeah, but then you just catch up on whatever, when the next billing cycle is. That
Right.
they would realize that savings that,
That's what I'm
from
saying.
the
So-
retained
Right.
earnings.
Yeah.
Yes.
It could almost be like our tax bills. When our tax
Exactly.
bills first come out.
Yeah.
It's estimated. And then, once they have the tax rate and everything set, the next two bills are actual.
Mhm.
So they can go up
Yeah,
or they can
good-
go
good
down, so.
Yeah.
I think even though, so if we didn't catch it in bill one, the first bill, we'd catch it in the second bill.
Correct.
Correct.
Because the meeting would be in November and that bill would go out in February, maybe?
say that again.
What months do we bill?
We set the rates in May, bills go out in June,
May and
start
December.
July. So October, bills go out in November, paying December for January.
Mhm.
So the new rates have to be set in November for the bills to be out in December.
Okay, so if a special town meeting is November, that's when we could apply it.
Yeah.
And we could correct the bill and the people would see the savings.
On the second half billing.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out the delay in applying the savings. It couldn't happen right away. It
Right.
couldn't happen at the beginning of a term, a billing term,
Mhm.
which is July 1. There's a little bit of a lag time. That's all I'm trying to,
Yeah, it's probably gonna be at least a 6-month lag.
yeah.
Which, once things get rolling.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be an issue. And again, at this point, you need a $10,000 savings. In return earnings to save everybody $5,
Exactly. Right.
which.
Stickers.
We like things going
That's
down.
right. That's what I was gonna
That's
say
a
is
big
that.
variable.
far as
That's
the-
another that could be $3,000-4,000 right there.
Right, and that would also help you offset, you have some wiggle room there with regards to the increase in recycling. You would have that offset.
Right, if our recycling bills were higher
Right.
than anticipated, we have that sticker money to help pay that bill. Without going back to the taxpayers and say, hey, we're short.
Exactly.
Now, the other variable that we kind of talked about a little bit before the meeting, and you kind of referenced Jack's immediate salary reference as being part of the Board of Health. That's what I would call a direct expense to allocate to an enterprise fund.
Yeah, an
Right.
indirect cost.
And I guess an indirect.
Yep.
All right. Versus the direct would be more the bills that we get directly from E.L. Harvey and Ryan and Kelly and.
Yep.
Right. So there's the other element of the indirect cost with regard to other personnel
Mhm.
in the town hall that comes into play. And whether or not that's something that, and I guess this is more of a discussion that would have to continue to happen between this board and the town hall with regard to whether or not anything that's done over there could be applied to the enterprise fund, or if it's considered a little bit of double dipping or a little bit of micromanagement.
It's not double dipping, no, it's not micromanaging either. It's a real expense because the thing is, is that the general fund is losing the receipt of the trash program.
Mhm.
So take that receipt out now, but they still have the same responsibilities related to the municipal curbside trash and recycling program. So before, it was kind of like, here was the receipt for all the expense, like for the program itself. But, and they offset their time because they were receiving that, because they had that receipt. That receipt is gone now. So that's actual billable time. It's actual billable time to the enterprise account.
So, but you have the position that people that work in the municipality, their salaries and what they do is already paid by the taxpayers in taxes.
Mhm.
So it seems like there's an extra element here of applying a cost to a role or to a step in their workday that is already accounted for when the taxpayers pay their taxes.
Because the subscribers are taxpayers too. I did read here on page 7, the Bureau recommends that every community with an enterprise fund establish a written internal policy regarding the indirect cost allocation and should review this policy annually. The policy should be reasonable and calculated on a fair and consistent basis.
Correct.
Local financial officials should understand and agree on what indirect costs are appropriated as part of the general fund operating budget and what percentage of these costs should be allocated to the enterprise fund.
Mhm.
So to me, that means that the Board of Health and the tax collector,
Board of Selectmen, really.
okay, have to
Agree.
have a written policy
Absolutely.
on what percentage. So that could
It's a
be
pretty
interesting.
standard agreement and it's a pretty standard percentage.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are some industry standards that we could
Absolutely.
use as guidelines.
Absolutely.
Because like I was thinking, Jody brought up, how many tax bills she collects for, real estate tax.
Mhm.
I don't know if she said how many tax bills she collects for state, excise tax. And then we know how many bills we send out. So a small portion, well, I shouldn't say small, a portion of the tax collector's duties are to collect those receipts on those bills. I mean, how do you figure that out? I mean, she collects water bills. Does the water department has an enterprise account? Do they get billed essentially from the tax collector for collecting the water bills?
Probably.
You'd have to ask the question.
Yeah, it's
Right.
pretty standard operating procedure
Okay,
with regards to indirect costs. And like I said, it's a pretty standard agreement between the general fund and any other enterprise organization.
where are these, standards found in the universe?
Oh, I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
I mean, I know what you're talking about. I have at one point it was a book.
Yeah.
It was construction standards.
Yeah.
How long it takes to lay so many feet of pipe. So it helped people that don't estimate that stuff often
Absolutely.
be able to go by some standards that were acceptable practice in the industry. So municipal government finance has a similar
Yeah.
table.
Any type of enterprise account that has indirect costs. I mean, that percentage is it's pretty standard formula to figure out.
Okay.
Now, stupid question, so, but indirect costs, I'm being stupid on it because I don't know
No
anything about
question,
this.
the only stupid question is the one that's not.
Alright, so let's say treasurer collector is 20,000 and I'm 10,000, so $30,000 of indirect costs, so does that get added on to the subscribers rates?
Well, in essence, it would be that would be part of their responsibility, yes.
Oh, okay.
See, that statement concerns me big time, because the action that they're taking next door to process those bills is one of many things they do in the course of the day in processing paperwork.
Mhm.
So you'd have to be telling me that if they're going to allocate a cost to processing the bills for this service, I would want to know they're allocating a cost for every other piece of paper they touch in that town hall to some element.
Mhm.
And I guess the question is, are they doing it? Or is this just an opportunity for them to allocate out a percentage of their time to bill to a fund, to an enterprise fund? In which case, potentially, it may not be a savings.
Yes, I have to wonder the same thing
Mhm.
because all the subscribers are already taxpayers. Taxpayers are already paying the salaries and benefit packages for all
For the,
municipal employees.
except for when you separate municipal curbside trash and recycling from the general fund.
But it's already, the service is already being paid for by the subscribers.
Mhm.
Right? The bills that we get from E.L. Harvey, the bills we get from Ryan and Kelly, Kelly and Ryan, the bills we get from
Wheelabrator.
Yeah.
Wheelabrator, those are the bills that we take into account for covering the cost of the program,
Mhm.
right? To date, we haven't factored in his personal time, and to date, we haven't factored in what is done at town hall. Jack, as well as everybody at the town hall, they're municipal employees whose salaries are already paid by taxpayers. It just seems to me there's a double dip here with this whole enterprise fund. If they can put indirect costs and apply a billing element to it and then zap program with more money so that there's more costs being put into the program than what it is now.
Mhm.
That to me does not sound fair. I may be missing something. But it
I
doesn't sound
question it because I don't think we're have a sophisticated enough accounting system in place to account for what everybody does every hour of the day or quarter hour of the day.
Mhm.
And we just sort of all do our job,
Mhm.
right? I mean, we don't, oh, I spent 7 hours doing restaurant inspections. We don't, well, we spent 2.5 hours at a Board of Health meeting. We just do our job.
That type of billing, what he's talking about, and not to disparage this profession in any way, shape or form. If this is how they operate, that's what a law firm does. Whenever they pick up the phone and they're on a call with a client, that call gets calculated and added to the bill of the client. Anytime they spend, I know for a fact,
Oh, you're right.
that is how that profession operates. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's what they do. And it's, in a way, that's what is being said would happen here with the enterprise fund. And not that that in and of itself is bad, because maybe we've been missing an expense all this time
Mhm.
that needed to be allocated. But I would want to know there's consistency with that thought process throughout the entire town hall, that that's the mindset that's being applied on every document they deal with, everything they do. And I just
Phone
don't,
call.
and I just don't know if that's the case. If it is, great. But I just don't know if that's happening. Because otherwise, if it's not, I think we're going to end up penalizing our subscribers.
Yeah, I get your point.
Unless I could be convinced otherwise.
No,
but-
that's why I didn't know if the good old revolving account that we were thinking was gonna take care of this was the account to go to.
Well, the key thing
A lot
about
simpler.
what Colleen said, the big difference is with an enterprise fund, there is no limit on the amount of money. you can
Right,
have.
but every year you have to vote on those revolving accounts anyway.
Well, the revolving accounts.
Right,
you
so
do. So if you set,
next year, if we have to raise
if you
the
set the
limit, we
limit,
raise the limit.
accordingly, and it gets reapproved every year. You'd have to go to town meeting every year. with it.
Right, because we know it's gonna go up because E.L. Harvey goes up.
That's correct.
Wheelabrator goes up. So let's just say for argument's sake, we're at 600,000 annual now. We know that the next year we're gonna be at 650. And the
Well-
next year we're gonna be at 700.
Yeah, you create that, you automatically build in a cushion. Where you, hopefully where you're not having to change that ceiling every single year. Maybe maybe it gets changed every 2, 3 years, because you know what's coming.
Mhm.
So you get that approval for that year one, knowing that that 4.5% increase is coming the next 2, 3, 4 years. You build it in up front so
Mhm.
that, because when a resident looks at this and they start to see, okay, the Board of Health needed 100,000 this year. Geez, they need 120,000 next year. Oh, now they need 104. What's with the increase in the ask every year in this revolving account?
But it's
People
all
will
covered,
ask.
it's all covered for,
It
with
is.
subscriber
All I'm saying
dollars.
is people will ask.
you know,
Could you, with the revolving account, taking the contract and I do all the calculations, like in the third year, it's $750,000. Could we set the revolving account right at 700, that we don't have to change it year 2 and year 3? Would that be an issue, making it that high?
Well, you'd
Even
have
though we're not
to,
gonna collect that much. in the first year, second year, third year.
See, other departments have the ability, and I'm not saying they do this, but I pretty common, spend outs. You buy another piece of equipment, you upgrade your computers, so you have your budget. And you can spend every dollar of that budget,
You have to,
okay?
in
Well,
Mass General Law.
well, if you don't, the money should go back in the general fund, right?
No, the money, if you don't, if there was any surplus in the general fund, it would then be certified the following year as free cash.
Okay,
But the general fund, the way that it's set up in accordance with the Mass General Law is to take it to zero. So if you allocated $300,000, you're spending $300,000.
all right, so I'll just,
Spending it on paper or actually spending it?
Spending it.
fire
Actually
department
spending.
has a budget of $1 million to
Mhm.
cover all their expenses for the year. And you come down to the 10th month of of that year, and you've got 100,000 left,
That gets certified as free cash the next year.
okay? Or you buy a piece of equipment that you need,
Correct,
and you spend it.
right.
Board of Health, we don't have any spend down.
Mhm.
Okay, so we only spend what we actually spend.
Spend.
We don't go out and buy something to use up the money. We don't have the ability that a lot of other departments may have to spend down their allotted budget money in the course of a year.
It's not like the departments though, because this is Mass General Law. This is the way that municipal governments have been structured. You know, so it's not like, you know, you can't disparage a department for if they were allocated $30,000 and at the end of the year, because, you know, for the very reason that, part of the reason I should say that the board wants to enter into an enterprise account is so that their surplus isn't used through the general fund at the end of the year. So these departments, so if their budget is allocated at $30,000 and they spend $30,000, that's actually what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay,
You know,
Well,
it's
you-
not the department, it's the structure of municipal government.
You're right in that, in theory, the budget should be reflective of ultimately what gets taken in, receipts, and what gets spent out. So theoretically, it's a wash at the end of the cycle, right?
Mhm.
But I know that the reality is in municipal government, it doesn't work that way. It's a wonderful concept. And it's something that every personal household probably engages in more often and better than any municipal government that's out there.
Mhm.
But I wish it did operate completely on that, because it's very tough. It's because of this whole, you end up, when we do our budgeting, we're doing it in advance of what's happening. Right? We're kind of doing guesstimates, we're estimating, right? So it's very difficult to be exact. Unlike at a household budget, we know pretty close every month what's
Well,
happening with expenses.
You could also request from the town accountant office your expenditure report. Any department, you know, it's all there for anybody to see. There's an expenditure report and you can take that and look at that and actually forecast what your expenses are going to be. You take it and divide it into quarters. So, you know, you look at, or even at 6-month intervals. All right. So you were allocated $30,000. It's December. Geez Louise, how come you've already spent 60% of your budget? You can ask those questions, or you underestimated the cost of providing that service. So you look at it and you say, oh, holy mother of the church, we're at 60% already. We have to bump that up. That's how you justify it to the finance committee, quite frankly, because it's, you know, it's their discretion, and then it's the residents' pleasure at town meeting whether they choose to fund that allocation or not. But you can use your expenditure report to forecast what your expenses are going to be throughout the year, just by looking at you know, in 6 months, you look at December and you say, okay, I'm in line with that. Okay, that amount is all right. Now, there's going to be a 3% increase. Okay, do you factor that in? you can use that report for better forecasting, more accurate forecasting. You can do that.
Well, hopefully, and I think we've been on a fairly regular basis, I think we've been pretty good about it within the BOH. With what gets projected out each year annually for the coming fiscal year, I'd say we've been pretty good. There were a couple of little hiccups in a couple of past years, but overall, I think we're pretty good, meaning that what we budget on paper is pretty much representative of what we're going to take in and then what we're going to spend out. So at the end of it, I think more often than not, we probably are always on the plus side where we have more
Yes.
left over. And then technically, then I guess what would happen is that automatically right now that goes to the general fund.
At the end of the year, what they do is they collect all the surpluses and all the budgets. And then they fund the deficiencies in
Correct.
those budgets.
Yeah.
Whatever is left over is certified as free cash the following
Yeah,
year.
and then it gets used for whatever need is in the community or.
As whatever, so then free cash is warrant articles to
Exactly.
purchase different pieces of
Exactly.
of
correct,
equipment, and that's
Yeah, I
the
think that
pleasure
we're
of
on
the
hold.
residents, right?
Correct.
But that's basically it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and we sort of do what you said. I mean, we go back to last year's tonnage.
Mhm.
We go back, to, we use the prior year and maybe the prior 2 years to do our forecasting.
Yep.
Along with the fixed expenses that we know we have, the EL hobby, we know we can, once we get the tonnage, we know what Wheelabrator is going to charge us. So we can calculate all that out. That's how we set the subscriber fees.
Mhm.
But we're not trying to, we're just trying to hold on to subscriber money.
Yep.
We're not really trying to hold on to anything in our budget that is extra at the end of the year. I mean, if there's something extra and it's taxpayer money, by all means, it should go back to the general fund and be used to pay bills, that need to be paid. But the subscriber money shouldn't go back there too. So that's the whole catalyst to get some kind of accounting in place to retain subscriber money, not taxpayer money.
Mhm.
Taxpayer money belongs just to the taxpayers.
Right.
So,
And one of the things in reading through this, and just as a FYI, which is thought was pretty cool, I went up on the DLS website the other day, and I came across something that they started doing actually as of today. Every Wednesday from 10 to 12, you can actually join a Zoom call.
Ask the
oh,
chief.
cool.
Ask the chief.
Right.
And so I actually went up on the call today because I had a question about a couple of things. So I, complimented them on them doing this. I think it's pretty cool. So they're actually going to get back to me on something. It's one of the things I saw when it outlined the different things you can use this for. It used the word facility. And so I just wondered if we actually had to have some sort of physical facility involved with any of these things.
Mhm.
And it doesn't appear so,
No.
that that's the case.
The facility is the program.
Yeah, I picked up on
Right.
that too.
Yeah.
Because when I first read it, I'm like, we really don't have a facility.
Right.
Right.
It's the program.
And I wanted them to be aware too, that it is a municipal program because it's being offered by a municipal entity like the Board of Health. But it's not an actual town-wide used or town-wide participated program. It is a specific portion of people, granted a large portion, but there's only a specific portion of residents that, and also the municipality, that use the program. So, and they didn't feel that necessarily mattered. They were going to reach out to their accounting group and just to validate for me, but it sounded like what we're doing could certainly fall under it.
Right.
What's next?
Well, you guys,
Do we feel comfortable enough to proceed with an enterprise account? Do we feel a revolving account
Well,
would do us better?
I think based on what you read and what I saw with regard to having an understanding, I think that's important to resolve that issue ahead of time. I'm not comfortable with what I heard from the last meeting,
Mhm.
with the indirect costs. Again, I could
Right.
be off.
Right,
I just am not, can't get my head around it. In my head, in my mind, we're gonna be zapping these people twice. With, if you're telling me that because they process the bills over there and he does his part on his end. Yes, it's for this program, whatever time is spent. And is it a case where we just kind of goofed and never factored it in when we started billing this thing from the get-go?
No,
That-
because in the general fund, while it was in the general fund, the town can bill itself for that service.
Well, it's been a subscriber-based fund for a long time.
But not in it, not
Not an
separated.
enterprise.
No,
It's
that's
still
been
within-
separated.
See, the
Right.
enterprise fund, the creation of the fund now, as Colleen says, has structure
Mhm,
and it has functionality
mhm.
and it has application. So now these indirect costs can now be accounted for directly, whereas prior.
But shouldn't they have been accounted for before?
No, because it was in the general fund.
Okay.
You can't bill yourself. So I guess the thing that you got, and and get clarification on it, and it's more like, I understand, what you're saying, but like, for me though, it's numbers, it's accounting.
Mhm.
So I understand the allocation and of indirect costs. So think of it this way, yes, they are all taxpayers. However, you're now taking the trash program out of the general fund. And you're separating that receipt, so there's no longer that benefit of that receipt in the general fund as a taxpayer. You're separating it and you're creating an enterprise account. So all of those receipts that are in the general fund are all that were there are coming into this enterprise account now. All right, there's no longer the benefit of that receipt. Yes, they are taxpayers, but we've also established that the taxes that are paid are not sufficient enough to support a curbside trash and recycling program. Therefore, we have a subscriber program now. That's the difference. So now you're taking that benefit of that receipt and you're putting it into the general fund. But they still have that responsibility of whatever the processing that's involved in the collecting the fees, okay? So that's why they can now bill the enterprise account for that indirect cost because of the loss of the receipt. And the taxpayer money is not sufficient enough to support the curbside trash and recycling program vis-a-vis the subscriber program.
I understand what she's saying with that description, and I absolutely agree with it. But I think what it potentially means is that we're not gonna potentially be offering a savings to the subscribers.
No, and that's why I don't know why a revolving account to retain the subscriber money isn't sufficient. As I'm reading this, I mean, we have other enterprise accounts in town. Are they getting billed indirect costs?
Probably. I don't know though.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to know,
Mhm,
because if they're using standards, I'd like to know, see what the standards are
mhm,
that because they're collecting money.
mhm. It's a worthy question. I think that's a worthy question. I also think that maybe to go back to the town accountant and maybe to town council for clarification on the pros and cons of establishing either a revolving fund or an enterprise account. We have some time to do that.
We do.
And, and I can write the warrant article for the revolving fund just as easily as the warrant article for the enterprise, but maybe you guys should get clarification on those two things.
Because at
first.
one point, we were told an enterprise account wasn't for us.
Yeah,
A
I believe
revolving
that there
account
had
was.
to be some physical asset element,
Mm,
Right, like the
Sure.
water company. The water company has water meters.
Yeah, but
but
it
that's
is,
changed.
right,
That's changed
It's in-
since we
it's-
last.
right.
Okay,
it's right here, that track
Disgusting.
disposal is a service
we
that
see, we
can,
were told that if we had our own trash truck, then an enterprise account would be,
And that,
because those retained earnings would be used to repair and replace the truck
Absolutely.
when the truck became obsolete. We don't have a truck.
no,
We don't have a
but we do
transfer
have a
station.
trash service.
Right.
And that is a, service that you can establish an enterprise account for.
It's
And that
under the
require-
category.
that- So that requires them to make out a bill. In terms of the,
Indirect costs.
right,
But my question, and we sort of touched on it before, is the tax collector, for an example, collects excise taxes. That's a state tax that the town is allowed to collect and keep. But it's a state tax. Does the state get a bill for indirect costs?
No. Because of the structure of the general fund. You guys don't have to vote on it tonight. I think you should
No,
get
no.
clarification for,
No, it's definitely involves, I think, a follow-up.
Yeah.
To your point, really getting down to the differences in the two.
Mhm.
Between
me-
involving an enterprise and
Right, this is a clearer accounting.
that's
Yeah.
perfect. I know.
And,
I've got a sweater.
Tom opened the window and
Should I turn down the heat? It's like 81, it says in
Oh,
here.
yeah.
holy
I know,
moly.
yes, when I came in, this was so, didn't you feel it?
It's like-
I know, he said I should we have shorts
I thought
on.
it was set on 69.
But it's set on 69,
Oh, it is 69.
yeah.
Why is it 81?
I mean, it's registering
Got an
obviously what,
enterprise account.
There you go. All right, so we've probably gone as far as we can on this.
so I just need to take it to these follow-up
Yeah.
discussions with the accounting
And,
group.
you know, and that's what it's about. It means great, healthy
down.
conversation.
Oh,
and
yeah.
to Understand, you
Well,
know,
and if it's something you don't do every day, it
that's right.
takes a couple times through it.
That's why we thought that this booklet here would be helpful for you
Oh, yeah,
guys.
that spells it right out.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely fabulous. Yep. I just have just a general concern that if we went the route of the enterprise fund, we might not actually be helping the cost element to the subscribers.
Mhm.
Could be off, I could be wrong, but it just seems like there's just some element here that we've never factored in before. Just never applied it when we sent the bills out. Because we were always just looking at the external bills coming in from all the entities, Yale Harvey, Kelly Ryan and all those, right? And never factored in what the local on-site people are doing as part of the expense of the program.
but right, and the thing is, not to interrupt you, but you can also bill the town now for the commercial component of the
Right,
dumpster.
but if it's a wash,
It doesn't have, I mean, I don't, is it a wash?
well,
You
that's
know,
what they were suggesting. They were suggesting that it's a wash.
ask them for the numerical, equation of the breakdown of exactly what that indirect cost is, the town hall's indirect cost is.
I mean, what we have may be the best we're gonna get it, even though we know that it's not perfect.
Well, the added variable here is that sticker money.
Right,
That just always goes back.
Well, yeah, but it's not just sticker money. It's any subscriber money that is left over after all the bills are
And
paid.
that too. I just think of. the-
It's any monies that we get from EL Harvey that come
Ah,
back
that's
to
right.
us.
Bonuses, a little
did
extra.
you ever look at the cherry sheet to see what that number is? No?
So,
What's a cherry sheet?
At the end of the year, the town accountant has to prepare all of the expenses and what was left and how it was used and the receipts and whatnot. And one of the receipts would be the trash. receipt.
So how much money, I mean, we had a meeting with finance committee and one of the gentlemen from the finance committee said at one time he remembers 150,000 being taken from trash to pay other town bills.
Should be up on the website. Don't they have like the annual?
They have the annual town report stuff.
Well, it should be in there, so you'd be able to see what that is. Because of all this talk and whatnot, and you may, there may be say $100,000 surplus that you're gonna have once you separate it. And the indirect costs really aren't gonna amount to a
Add too
hill of
much.
beans.
Yeah.
But you should actually ask for a true accounting of the indirect costs from the town hall, a true accounting of it.
Well, just like we would try to pin down his actual,
Mhm.
which I know is difficult, but we would try to give it an actual real number as best we could,
Mhm.
right?
Right, and but ask for a true accounting from the town hall of what they're looking, what that number looks like. It may not be the 17.5 for the dumpsters, it may be considerably less than that. But the only way you're gonna know is if you ask and ask for that breakdown.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we can look up and find out, we can see what that receipt was.
Yeah, even if we knew what it was over the last 5 years,
Mhm.
what actually went back. I mean, we know how much sticker money, things like that.
Mhm.
Well, you have a spreadsheet that you showed me that
For the stick of money?
Missy actually was tracking, I think, started tracking as to what was going back. It showed pluses and minuses and as far as the end of the year budget was
Is that
concerned.
the stick of money or the,
I think it was an overall spreadsheet.
that was one Kim sent me when I first started.
Okay.
I mean, we can figure out a broad number just based upon the cost and the amount of subscribers. And then what the contract costs are and then. get
But see,
the sticker
there's
money.
things that change. I mean, the subscribers could change year to year.
A ball pack and it,
Mm.
we get a good idea.
I mean, how many subscribers right now?
Almost
18,
1900,
almost
Almost
1900 out of how many?
We added some
2000 and some odd.
Mhm.
20.
So it's almost, I mean, it's a pretty high percentage.
And
'Cause at
that's
one
why
point,
it'd
there-
be
wasn't there
worthy
like
to
400?
separate it.
400 household spread.
Yeah, we had like 500 and some odd that weren't on the
Yeah,
list.
I don't know.
Ask for the breakdown of that number. We can look up the receipts.
Guess we just have to go do a little homework here.
Yeah, a little, sharpen
Colleen
your
said,
pencil.
we have time.
Yeah.
This is like our investigatory period.
Yeah.
right?
We
Because
we
it-
can,
Well,
sharpen our
I'm-
Burn the
pencil.
warrant till March 14th.
March
Mhm.
14th, you're correct.
Right.
The answers shouldn't take really all that long to get.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm,
No.
not at all.
You'd think.
Well, depending how long they get back to us with their,
But the numbers are all there and they're
The
available.
cherry
You
sheet
just have to
is the
look at
cherry
'em.
sheet.
Right.
Mm.
Right,
That's there.
Right.
That's some.
but someone's interpretation of how, what percentage of Jack's, what percentage of Jody, what percentage of Tracy?
Tracy,
I don't know if there's anybody else really involved.
it's Eric.
I mean, we could take a percentage of you.
Real
But
technically,
the
all
thing
this-
is, you recognize that number, whether or not it's accurate or not. You recognize it.
Mm.
You recognize it.
I mean, it says you have to agree and it has to be reasonable.
That's right. And then once you get that number, and then you have a discussion, the board collect with the Board of Selectmen. We'll look at the receipts and get that information. We don't have all the information yet for you.
Okay, so I guess this topic is ongoing. Unless anyone has anything else to add at this time. All right, so we'll all do some more thinking and make some inquiries.
Right, Jack?
that's all right.
All right.
Board of Health FY 2025 budget. Want to do this page by page, just like we're presenting it?
Did I give you the very last page? Think so? We
You
could
did.
do that. It's basically instead of describing everything all over again.
No, I
Want to go page by
Yeah.
page? All right, page by page it is.
you put a lot into it. I don't wanna miss anything. If that's okay with everybody.
That's fine. For this current fiscal year, our budget is $732,575. For our salaries and wages, we now have our health agent Colleen on board. Current fiscal year budget for 24 was 5,575. Proposed 2025 with Colleen's salary, I'm increasing it by 30,000. So that's that increase.
Before you go any further,
Yes.
so from your perspective, just to kind of get an update, how do you feel you've been with your time and all the things you've had to handle through the Board of Health with regard to are things flowing well, or do you feel that there's,
No, I think that, right now, I'd like to get a year underneath our belt
okay,
and, see, where we are in a year's time. I mean, we're pretty busy. We have, now we're ramping up with, believe it or not, mobile food vendors. I actually did an inspection today. And in the
Was it the
rain.
main,
Yes.
And you could not believe the amount of people, because I said to Tara,
This is Cousins Maine Lobster.
Yes.
cousin made,
Oh,
and
I caught on.
they parked down at 89 Hartford Ave next to
Right.
Larry Joe, right? I'm like, what the hell are they doing down here? So anyway, I went and there were people lined up.
yeah,
very popular?
I was gonna stop and buy one for my husband, because I can't eat it, I'm allergic, but I thought, oh, I'll stop and buy, and then I thought,
Yeah, everybody raves about them.
I mean, great outfit. I mean, they have it, they have it down to a science, very nice people to work with.
How long have they been down there?
They did,
Just
this was the
looking at-
first time. They usually at Vandervalk Farm.
Right,
And
right.
that's why I said to her, I'm like, what the hell are you doing down here? And she's
So
like,
they
"Oh,
were getting an annual permit?
They got
Yep.
the annual.
Yep. And, but I couldn't believe that I pulled in and there were like, 8 people waiting.
yeah.
Yeah, 8 people waiting. So anyway, to get a year underneath the belt and let's see
Okay.
where we are. I mean, we're busy with permits and housing and
How long did it-
Make sure the workload and the value are matching up,
Mhm.
because, if there's a need to make an adjustment,
Not this year. I'd
Okay.
say next year.
okay.
How long did the inspection take you?
How long does it, and that inspection for a mobile food then it took me like 40 minutes. 45.
And they had a good thing, everything was good.
Mhm. They have it down to a science, really. Just a couple of things that I discussed with them with regards to their importance of one of the things for me, and I've repeat myself a lot, is the maintenance of temperature logs. It's very important. I explained to them the reason for it, and it helps me help them save their inventory.
Right.
That's the bottom line, and that's their bottom line, So I had a conversation with them, told them when they come back to Vandervalk Farm, I would expect to see temperature logs.
Yeah, well, they don't want to throw out 10 pounds of lobster meat, right? So,
And that's it. That's what they don't realize, you know what I mean? And talking with a lot of the food establishments. And once you express it and, explain it to them in those terms, it's like, I'm actually helping you save your inventory. They have a different look at it now.
Yeah.
It's not just a task any longer.
right.
Right.
You know why there was a slight spike for a 30-minute period?
Right,
Because they were accepting a delivery, so the door was open.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
it had nothing to do with a malfunction.
No,
Yeah. All right.
sorry, Jeff.
No, you're fine. Newspaper ads, I'm not expecting any increase, but past ads that we have placed was the town cleanup with Upton, the mosquito and tick fly insert, any legal notices the Board of Health may have, and the new trash automation program insert that was sent out at the beginning of July. So not seeing any increase in that budget line item. Contract services fiscal year 24 budget was for 10,000. This is going to be basically used for the tobacco enforcement inspections. I cut it in half because I don't think we're going to be spending $10,000 a year on tobacco inspections.
What was our actual?
Well, this is the first time that
Okay, so what was our actual?
I haven't received a bill yet from them.
Okay,
Let's see here. Visiting Nurse Association, I talked to Ann Labonte. They are not raising their rates for this year, so that's gonna stay the same. Engineering fees.
Sorry for interrupting. Has
No.
there been any conversation with them? And we brought it up once before in a previous meeting about the opportunity to maybe get some sort of reporting element.
Yes, because I asked for that. We talked about this before, I believe in November. In December, I asked her for it. She says, yep, I'll work on it. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
When we talked about it last, she goes, yep, working on it now. So I do have a copy of it. So I was gonna save that for the next Board of Health meeting.
Perfect, cool.
Engineering fees, as we all know, our engineering fees was Tom Ryder and Steve Donatelli, but since we have the Title V revolving account, we decided to remove that line item as that goes towards the health agent salary. So that budget line item is no longer in play. Testing lake and landfill, that is between Lake Nipmunk and the former Minden landfill. There will be an increase from the people who do the water testing, which is Microbac. They going up by 9% for their testing. So for Lake Nipmunk, budget for 2024 is 10,000. I left that unchanged, so we'll leave that at 10,000. Lake, the landfill was 19,000, but I included the new third-party inspection and reporting, permit modification request, and the access agreement, which we have with Atlas. So I included those costs in this fiscal year's budget for 2025 to include those costs. So that's why the budget is now raised another $5,700.
okay, question
Yes,
on this topic.
yes.
Based on Tom's research and conversations with DEP, do we need to allot more money? It's very possible that we may have to do those repairs,
Mhm.
catch basin, sinkholes. I don't wanna, or do we just let it ride? Or do we tell the selectmen what we're anticipating, but we didn't include it in the budget because we really don't know which way it's gonna go? I mean, I don't want to get caught with not having funds allocated. Because if we don't spend them, they'll go back.
I'd put money in there as a placeholder myself, because the thing is that at least you have it funded. And, you know, if the DEP comes back and says, hey, you know what, I want, you
Groundwater
know,
testing.
right. And we already put the money in there, you know, and it's a lot easier than saying, oh, we got a bill for 10 grand
Go
and
from
then
a
we have to
variety,
go.
Yeah, well, even if we
Yeah.
have, if we're fortunate enough that we're able to have our highway department go down there and fix that catch basin, there's still a cost,
Mhm.
right? There's an indirect cost.
Direct
Or a
cost.
direct cost.
Yeah.
However you want, in having them do that, because they have to take time away from something else, materials, et cetera. Or if we have to hire an outside contractor, we gotta have the ability to pay.
Do we
And-
create an enterprise fund for the landfill?
I don't,
I think a
I don't wanna get
placeholder is a good idea. Yeah, a placeholder is. a
I
very
would,
good
I would
idea.
rather explain it upfront
Mhm.
and have them tell us, don't worry about it right now and we'll get it paid for. Or no, thank you for, putting that in the budget. We understand what the difference is. Because I mean, we have a legal obligation and we don't know how it's gonna go.
And we do know, the good thing is that DEP is very much aware of our situation. And as what's been pointed out, they work very well
Mhm.
with the local communities, right? In resolving. So I would agree with you that it's probably best to put it out as a placeholder now. But
Yeah,
I don't anticipate seeing any pressure to be put under some sort of a timeline to get things fixed in an unreasonable way.
Mhm.
And I think, but I would agree, we should probably put it in as a placeholder.
I'm gonna guess. You could, I haven't looked at the catch basin. But I wouldn't be surprised if you could spend $2,500 to $3,000 labor and materials to do that job.
Mhm.
I mean, it's probably a 1 day job, but you got a, machine, you got to dig, you got materials, you got, barrel block and cement. And you've got a couple of guys.
So if we put this in as a placeholder, and let's say it did have to come to fruition, right?
The money would go back to the general fund, right?
Well, that was kind of my question. So does the the highway department then, does that money get transferred over?
Well, if the highway department could do the job.
Yeah.
I would say after the job was done and they say this is what it was.
For materials.
Material side, right?
Yeah, and well, materials and labor, I mean, it's work on private property, not on town-owned property. So I would think that the highway department and the taxpayers, I mean, it's really, they're just transferring money from one pocket to the other, but that, somehow you have to compensate the highway department. So it would go from our budget to theirs.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the mechanism, if that would work.
Well, that's a accounting.
So we would want to account for it on our end.
I would think so, because what if the highway department wants to do it, but can't get it done in a timely manner? Because they have other things that are more urgent. Now we have to have the ability to hire an outside contractor.
It's a possibility, yeah.
I mean, John seemed amicable to doing it or try to put it on the schedule, but he wants to make sure he has the authority to work on private property.
Yep.
We may find out that that's just too hot. And hiring an outside contractor with their own liability insurance and their own workman's comp insurance and is the way to get it done and not tie up the highway department for a day. I mean, we don't have a huge staff.
What do you think is a good number?
Well, I would say just to do that catch basin, you could drop $3,000.
Say 5?
Well, we've got all the sinkholes.
I was gonna say 10 total.
Right.
Well, originally I was thinking 10 and then I wanted to back it down a little bit. But that catch basin you really can't let that fail. Now, the sinkholes, you might have a little more time, but they're only going to get worse.
Say 7,500?
7,500?
It's a happy medium.
Joyce?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know how much those things cost,
You
but
could, go through that.
I know that
Okay.
it needs to
Mhm.
be done and you want to be prepared.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just don't want to hit the town blindly
Exactly.
and say, hey, listen, we've been ordered to get this done. We have a good relationship. We can't drag our feet on this. But there's an expense here that we haven't had to worry about in the past.
Mhm.
And this is kind of a weird thing where it's on private property,
So in terms of the 19,000 for the landfill,
Yep.
we're going to add another,
We're gonna add another 12,000, $13,400 total.
okay,
So 13 and 19, bigger to
32.
32,000.
24/7 changes to 32. Right?
Yep, 32,700 or 200, 32,200.
32,200?
Yep.
So that goes in that line item.
Proposed fiscal year 25 for landfill.
so we're bumping it by 75.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and like I said, we can explain to them when we present
Absolutely.
this,
Mhm.
why we're doing this. I just don't want to wait.
No, I think I think of being responsible. Proactive instead of reactive.
Well, I want to keep that good relationship and, this has been, thank God, you've been working on this for years with
When do I
them.
submit my bill?
Yeah.
Only he's got to submit it.
All right. So we can move on to postage.
Okay, so postage, even though its stamps are going up for another 2 cents, I am not proposing any additional charges to the budget, so I'm gonna keep it at 1,500. Same thing with supplies. I'm not seeing any difference in that budget. So 2,300 will remain. Also for meetings, memberships and dues, fiscal year 24 is 1,500. Again, not seeing any change in that, so I'm leaving that alone. Now we get into trash disposal. Trash disposal, we have wind waste and clean harbors for these categories. For wind waste, our current fiscal year 24 budget is $138,000. Using past years' calculations, I am proposing an increase of $5,000. And that is for the trash disposal that E.L. Harvey collects. So that's a 4% increase. And as you see by the chart in August 2020, August 21, November 22, and August of 23, Clean Harbors, who does our household hazardous waste day, has not gone beyond $10,000. So I'm going to keep it at $10,000.
Okay.
So for trash disposal, I increasing the entire budget up by 5,000.
Okay, and that's, all right, wind waste is, they burn it. Okay.
Yep. Trash collector is E.L. Harvey. Trash collector for 2024 is $502,250. This is broken out in two categories. One is for trash collection. The other is for the recycling. For our current contract, our recycling fee is $110 per ton. Averaging out for 24 for trash collections was $450,000. And for our fiscal year 24, recycling was estimated at $52,050. For 2025, I am proposing a $20,000 increase to the trash contract and keeping it $110 for the recycling. I'm keeping that at $52,250. So total all increase of the trash collector budget of $20,250.
Okay.
Can you tell us what the actual bills have been in the last few months on the tonnage from E.L. Harvey?
I've seen the average was probably be about 113. I've seen as high as 109 and as low as 102 per ton.
As high as, I'm saying
119.
119, okay.
And as low as 102.
Low as 102. Okay, so
And what about our tonnage?
Tonnage, I think
Between wind waste, are we running within budget?
yes, we are running within budget.
'cause that's a set schedule scale.
Right, but the tonnage can change.
Oh, the weight,
Yeah.
yes, but the rate.
So I was, I'm curious.
Between 2023 and 2022 fiscal years, we had a decrease in tonnage of 18.57 tons.
Okay,
So for an average increase of tonnage between 2017 and 2023 is an average of 22.72 tons. So I've taken that 22.72 tons and added it on to this current proposed budget. And that's where I'm getting the increase of the 143. Trash administration, I'm assuming, again, with the postage going up, I've increased that trash administration with Kelly and Ryan, who does our billing services twice a year. I'm raising that from $4,250 to $4,500 for fiscal year 2025.
okay, and currently we're covering our bills,
We are, yes.
big surplus. No, we're right there.
Yeah.
Okay, because I remember that 4250 was a $250 increase, and we were kind of guessing on the
Yes,
cost of postage going up,
correct.
so we covered it.
Yes.
Good.
So the overall proposed fiscal year 2025. Total Board of Health expenses is going up by 14%. And total trash recycling program, total overall is going up 5%.
Okay. And of course, that's gonna change.
Well, that's gonna change
with
when I
those numbers
increase the,
that we-
landfill.
Right, right. And when you increase, you just, oh, wait, $7,500, that went on landfill.
Yeah, that's gonna
right.
go, yep.
Okay.
This is great, Jack. Great.
Oh, he does a dynamite job.
Yeah, it's really,
Why we love him.
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So a question on going back to the engineering category.
Yeah.
I know we're eliminating that.
Yes,
because of the Title V? Could the Title V be presented in this presentation?
it can be.
I think it should be,
Okay.
especially where we have a question kind of came up. We had a discussion about whether or not we have a redundancy in Title V accounts.
Okay.
Jack mentioned there's a reference. We'll take a pause. This is where we play the Jeopardy music.
So, well, how do you get paid?
What?
I mean, I don't see anything here that says how you get paid.
That's part of the town's.
Oh,
salaries.
okay, so you're getting good pay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure, like, where is that?
I don't know, how come that isn't in Board of Health though? And just as a line item, I mean, it would be the same amount, but you know, within the Board of Health operating budget.
So it's underneath the town hall bleachers.
Oh, do they have like a group?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. That's just how they choose to do it.
Okay.
But
well,
it is
I just-
interesting. It goes to the, that allocation, that accuracy, the.
Well, it's
But-
clearer accounting, to be honest with you, to take each admin position and allocate it into the department that it belongs in, as opposed to having this catch-all of town hall. I mean, I'm not telling them how to do their thing.
I would absolutely agree. For someone looking at it, you get a clearer breakdown per.
Yes.
Department. Well, I just want to make sure he's getting his,
Yeah.
just,
Get a paycheck every week.
because I didn't see anything here, and I was like,
I know, Joyce, great minds, because I'm saying, where's Jack's salary?
Do it free.
yeah, because he loves us so
That's
much.
right.
That's right. Well, we love him that much
I
too.
don't think Justin would let him.
Yeah, no, no.
Yeah.
Not today, anyway.
Isn't here.
It is unbelievable, and I've
Yeah.
got on a wool sweater, a
I just got
cashmere
a
sweater,
t-shirt.
cashmere sweater, and a wool.
Raise the window a
wool
little higher,
shirt.
more cold air.
Uncomfortable.
I think it seems like it got a little cooler.
Yeah, with the
In a
windows, yeah.
sense, yeah.
It was never too long for me, but I don't know.
Oy,
I was like,
Apologize.
right.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Please.
no, I was gonna, just where we're losing the engineering line item, right? That's going away. But it's actually being replaced by the Title V account.
Mhm.
And my question is, I think we should present that in this budget, just the way we've done every other area. But there was some question about, that we had the other day that came up and talking with you and Dan about the Title V accounts. It appeared as though there's a couple of different.
Yeah, they both say expenditures, but I guess one item's for incoming receipts and one's going for expending receipts. I just found it weird. One had like $10,000 and one had negative $16,000.
I was never really comfortable with the Title V account.
We're just having that conversation
It
today.
just doesn't sound,
Professional.
you know, so one of the things that I wanted to do, and I think I mentioned it, was I didn't know if we needed to rename it. Because basically that's Steve Donatelli
And Tom Ryder.
and Tom Ryder. All right, so Tom Ryder, he reviews all our plans.
Correct.
Steve Donatelli goes out, does inspections in the
Correct.
field, perk tests, failed systems, et cetera. I know that stuff pertains to Title V, but I don't like the name Title V for that account.
Yeah, we were just talking about this today. I have a problem with it myself.
Yeah, it needs,
Septic plan
Any
review
suggestions?
and inspections.
there you go.
What was it
That's
called?
all it is. Septic plan review and inspections, because that's what it is.
So I think it needs to be renamed, and I like that.
Yeah.
That sounds clearer. Someone reading is gonna understand.
But what about the wells? Tom does the wells too. So do we put septic plans, wells
Yeah,
type of thing?
I
Like,
would say.
All right, so septic plans, wells, and
Septic plan review and inspections and
Yeah,
well
testing.
permitting, because he does the permitting, right?
he does, yes.
Yeah.
the other
And
is
testing.
Inspections.
outside testing and inspections.
Mhm.
So unless we can shrink that, Title V just doesn't, Title V is a law.
And the thing, you're right, and the thing
Right? It's
is
rules and
that,
regulations. That's what Title V is.
right, and wells have nothing to do with Title V.
That's separate. You have separate regulations.
Unless you call it, I mean, well, I mean, a professional and technical account for septic plan review and inspections, review,
Just, this is what
and
it says.
permitting.
It says this on the top there, your engineering fees are applied to invoices pertaining to the review and approval of applications/permits that relate to a disposal system, construction, depot and percolation, septic design extensions, additional septic plan reviews, soil test extensions, and well permits. So
So do we go back instead of calling it Title V? Do we call it engineering account?
I would
Yeah.
say you could
Oh,
do
will it
that.
help with
Will
the
that-
clearing account?
Will that
Sure.
cover it? Will that cover it?
Yeah, that way.
That's real simple.
Engineering and inspection account,
All right.
because Steve isn't necessarily
Okay.
an engineer, he's
Yeah.
an
So
inspector.
engineering and inspection
Yeah,
account. So we need, I'd like to see that renamed to something that more
Direct,
appropriate.
more appropriate.
All right.
so
And
that
if it's, that's a
revolves,
revolving account now, are we covering all our costs?
I'm sorry, what?
Are we covering all our
Yes,
costs? All right.
yes, because we'll be talking about later as unanticipated topics in 48 hours.
Okay,
so that revolving account was created at a town meeting. So in order to change the name, should check with Karis, but I think that you would have to do a warrant article, change the name.
okay,
Which is fine.
that's
You
fine,
could
yeah.
Add that to the,
Yep.
And then I don't know if you heard the history of how that happened.
Hmm.
You did?
Mhm.
Okay, so again, we're just trying to clean
Yep.
things up and,
Yep.
and it seems to be working. If there's money in the account, we're not overdrawn. Then we're doing okay. We're collecting enough and we're retaining enough to pay our bills,
Hmm.
without having to go to the taxpayers and telling them that we don't have enough money. So we should all feel good about that.
and what do we say we're gonna make this name? Engineering and inspection.
Board of Health Engineering and Inspection revolving account.
And then, of course, we're gonna add that back into that.
Yeah, we'll add that into the
Yeah.
budget,
And what's the cap on that?
25,000.
So how do we value that when we put it on this table? Because there's not necessarily 25,000 in it.
Yeah, I think no, like, we'll just tell them like, engineering fees are out, but here's the Board of Health budget for the revolving account. I won't even include in the. 'cause
Dollar
we'll-
side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, yeah, it shouldn't be in your operating
No.
budget because it's a revolving account, so it
Okay.
should be separate.
And what happens is the person that's requesting these things is paying a fee.
Right,
Correct.
it's kind of like your trash program, same thing.
Page you on there now.
Well, actually, we were at the end.
Yeah, we're at the end.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good job.
Great job.
Thank you.
So
Great.
so the last page, Jack,
Yes.
at the very bottom line is we're saying it's a 5%
Increase in overall.
increase overall.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Considering,
Well, right now it's 5%. It could go up to 7% when I increase the landfill.
Yeah, I don't think the 7,500 is gonna bump it up that much, but
it's still I think a great,
Yeah, maybe a percent.
Mm.
If that,
I think
Yeah.
they're lucky to have us.
of course they are.
Sorry.
What do you mean? I'm serious. All right. Anything else on the budget for 2025? All right, and when do we have to?
I have a meeting with, me and Colleen have a meeting with Jody and David, the town administrator, to go over the budget. Help us out with any fine tuning and stuff like that, but then they're gonna schedule us to meet with the select board and finance committee
Right,
in
when's that usually happen?
March.
March, okay. So we're in good shape, all right. Anything else? We're good? All right, let's move on to Colleen, health agent updates, please.
So, 10 Northbridge Road is, stable. We've taken a look at that. Me and Stevie Donatelli have been looking at it on a pretty regular basis. There's nothing really new to report there. I haven't, spoken with Mr. Audie, but I do go by there and look at it every single day and I don't see any breakout whatsoever. Of course, it's snow covered right now, but you would see, even if there was, you would see something and I haven't seen anything. I do plan on calling him though, to ask him, last time I spoke with him, the occupants were in the, he was hoping we're gonna purchase the property, so I'd like to see where he is with that right now.
Oh, can I just
Yeah.
mention this one thing? Every time I go by 10 Northbridge Road, there is like so many cars on both sides and, so many people going in. I'm just wondering, is that our job? Is that our business or not?
Probably not.
Okay,
I know he has 2 vehicles himself,
all right.
and then you have the tenant downstairs that they each have a vehicle. So you're looking at 4 vehicles there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I just was wondering how many people he's got in there and what's he.
Well, if he has more people in there, then he's gonna have
That's
a
the
quicker
with
problem.
this stuff, right?
Right.
Just a curiosity thing, because like I said, because I've got this thing in my head, every time I go by, I slow down and look and see what's going on and,
Yeah, between Steve and I, we're monitoring that property.
Yeah.
To make sure. Steve, as a matter of fact, at some point, if he hasn't done it already this week, was gonna lift the lid again. Just to see where it is. So I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, it's kind of, the water table's gotta be riding pretty high.
oh, yeah. I mean, I had pooling in my yard, which I've never had.
Mhm.
Out on the side, side, as you're looking at that Hastings Street side. There's was pools of water. I mean, it did dissipate and stuff like that. And we have a trench inside the basement and,
Some,
somehow,
yeah,
yeah, but
so do I.
it
Good.
was.
As long as you don't lose power, you're good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah, then you don't want to open your cellar door.
Yeah,
With regards to, 10 Cape Road, we received a new complaint, spoke with the property owner yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yep, I spoke with the property owner yesterday and the tenant. From the storm a couple of weeks ago, she advised, the office that a window was broken. I spoke with the, property owner and he wasn't aware of it. He was gonna go check it out. And I spoke with the tenant, yesterday as well, and, she was concerned about that and also about pest control. So I spoke with the property owner about, getting us a new pest control report. So I'll keep you updated on that. We received a state sanitary code, complaint on, property on, Hastings Street. Went there on Tuesday morning.
Mhm.
And spoke with the landlord, invited the landlord to be present during the inspection. And they were present during the inspection. The tenant was complaining that there is a leak in the ceiling in their bedroom that's been ongoing since September. And they've advised the landlord of the issue. The landlord did acknowledge that they were advised and they hadn't done anything about it, pretty much. They were very receptive to getting it repaired, of course. With the snow on the roof and the ice and whatnot, it's not the ideal time of the year, but they are gonna come up with a remediation plan so that, there was, the plaster was, chipped and missing from the leak. there were brown spots from, you can see the water, how it traveled. Showed that to the landlords and, they said that they spoke with a roofer, Mr. Alves, who I left a message for yesterday. He hasn't returned my call yet, to just confirm that they have in fact engaged his services. And so I'll be monitoring that and working with the property owners. They were very receptive. They truly were very receptive. The tenant declined a full inspection. You have to offer it to them at the time of that they make the request. He was only concentrating on the leak in the roof, and then they were concerned about snow removal on both egresses. The landlords were of the opinion that the tenant should be doing that, and I pointed out in the state sanitary code that in fact it's the landlord's responsibility. So they're gonna make
What's the
sure.
address?
Hmm?
What's the address on this one?
10 Hastings Street.
Ken Hastings.
Yep, Unit 2. So that will be ongoing. I'll keep the board apprised of that.
Going up, is that on the right or the left?
Left. It's the big white house there,
Okay.
Yep. right
Jason,
after that gold house.
Yep.
Mhm. Yep. We also received a complaint, same property owners, different property, about urinating outside, and spoke with the property owners about that. Apparently, they have a tenant who has a minor child who's 3 years old, and apparently the 3-year-old likes to
Write his name in the snow.
write his name in the snow. So I addressed that with them. They said that they would address it with the tenant. And I have every faith that they will. If I receive another complaint, I guess it was brought to my attention after the fact that apparently there's an issue there with the toilets being able to flush. I'll be speaking with the property owners tomorrow with regards to that. Probably request a site visit just so that I can basically go in and flush the toilet. And I'll report back to the board on that.
Your toilet.
wow,
flushing.
no,
Well, that's one of the, I'll tell you what, when you do a housing inspection,
Right,
the hot water and flushing the toilet, 2 things you do almost immediately.
things that we just take for granted.
Also in that apartment too, the smoke detectors weren't working. The
Ooh.
batteries had died, so the landlord said they would replace the batteries. I reported it to the fire chief.
that was on which, oh, that was on 10.
Hastings, yep.
Right, they're both on Hastings, but
Yeah, number 10.
10.
Yep, number 10. Reported it to the fire chief though.
These complaints come to you?
Yes.
I think it's great that people who have issues find a responsible party to reach out to so that something gets done.
They appreciate it. And they appreciate the attention, I mean, just to know that actually somebody is, responding to their concern.
And the way it's being responded to. So to your point, how a lot of it is how we approach the clients.
Absolutely, correct. Yes,
That goes a
Absolutely.
long way for getting resolution.
Right.
So kudos.
Absolutely. Well, we're all a team.
That's right.
We all represent each other. Bottom line. Yeah. We did receive another complaint for bed bugs at Sunrise Apartments. And come to find out, the woman who complained has withdrawn her complaint, said no, she doesn't have them in her apartment. I spoke with Laurie Ann at Milford Housing. She said there is one unit that is still active and they're treating it. We got the most recent report. Great rapport with Milford Housing. I'm sure that they will be, diligent in the remediation of it. This particular tenant that we spoke to, she was adamant that they were not in her unit and she did not want her unit treated. Spoke with Laurie and she confirmed that they had gone into her unit a while back and there was no activity there. So I'm not sure what was going on there, but we did respond to the complaint.
that's crummy though, if they have them. Oh, my God.
It's common, especially if you pick up furniture on the side of the road, chances are,
You're going to bring home friends.
that's right. And there was also the issue with, the son of one of the residents was doing their laundry. Apparently that is no longer. Yep. And that's all I have for right now, other than Jack and I have been working on the permit renewals, inspections, getting the paperwork in. And, just now, like I said, the mobile food vendors, I'm like, wow. I guess,
Hey, I mean, get an inspection, get an annual permit, that, I mean, that's the way to go.
mhm.
Especially if you're going to a mobile food vendor that has a good reputation and good equipment,
Mhm.
it makes it a little easier. Um,
Well, we just got the schedule too for Vandermark Farm.
Yeah.
They're gonna be zooming this year.
well, they got that extra parking area now to
I
get
don't know.
everybody
Did
off
they,
the
did-
street.
is that?
Oh, it's all set up nice.
Oh, they-
Is it?
they
I
allowed it?
thought they were not supposed to have
They
that.
they shut it down.
I
I didn't,
thought so,
I didn't
too.
know that. I mean, they bought
Yeah.
the property, they,
They had it all taped off.
But it's commercial. That's commercial that makes it commercial property and that's not commercial.
All right, on topic.
Yeah, sorry,
On topic.
sorry.
okay,
So anyway, I'm done.
where do we go from here?
Number
I
seven.
move for your adjourn.
Okay.
No. Okay, anybody have any outstanding old business?
Yes. But anyone else wants to go first?
I do not have anything.
First question would be, you kind of alluded to food permitting applications, but where do we stand on, I know we're looking at updating based on what the board voted with regard to an allowance for charitable groups. There was going to be a reformatting of the documents to reflect, is that still in process?
It's still in progress, yes.
Okay.
I haven't done anything with that yet.
Okay. And any update on the tight tank operational and maintenance plans? I know you discovered that seems like we don't really,
I have not come across one. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't done that probably about a month, but when I've done, I've probably done about 20 of the tight tanks and there are no plans on file.
I don't know if at some point we want to have an action plan for that, but
I would think so.
just a notation for another.
Refresh my memory, did we determine that that was a requirement?
That is a requirement under Title V.
Okay. As I thought it was from previous discussions. So thank you for confirming that. Yeah, we should definitely get that on the agenda. So let's put that on the next agenda, Jack. Um,
The last one I had was, and we could maybe make an agenda item. I was just curious where we stood with the Lake Nipmuc Task Force as it pertains to BOH, but if you want to save that for another night.
Well, actually, what happened was we had a meeting, but there was only 3 of us there.
Okay.
So we couldn't have a meeting. And then, but we're having another meeting on the 30th.
I just figure we're getting toward I know it's only January,
Right.
but the months come
yeah,
quick.
It is. It goes by fast. Yeah.
And, we do have money in our budget
Correct.
for supporting testing and so forth. I just want to make sure that,
And I talked to Isabella at Concom, and I guess they have $11,000 in their budget for Lake Nipmuc. And they spend about $5,000 for that weeding thing that they do.
Oh, yeah.
She goes, yeah, so we got $6,000 in our own budget for Lake Nipmuc. Like,
okay, well,
okay,
between the two of us,
we should have plenty
I
of
think
money
we have
too.
it covered. I just want to make sure it's implemented.
Yeah.
So-
yeah, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, getting it done.
Because it always seems as though we're in the season when we're
Right.
trying to do something. We gotta get it done before.
And I want to talk to you in the future about
Yep.
the septic people that haven't still answered and
Yep.
what we need to do. We
Yep.
need to, as a group, John and I can even go and
Yeah.
knock on doors if, when he's not busy.
Anything
That
else?
happens.
We're all good?
Yep.
All right, so we'll set the next meeting.
Note that we have unanticipated topics, 48 hours.
Ah,
Do we,
number 8.
I would ask, because it's
sorry.
really and unanticipated, but I'm wondering if we want to incorporate another standard item on the agenda. Community service announcements. Periodically, there are things that come through to us that might be good to just pass along in a meeting. But it's not, I have a couple, but they're not on the agenda, so for future, if we wanted to kind of have that category, if there's nothing, there's nothing, yes. But
I'm good with it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as, you know.
Right,
Something else for Jack to keep us on track.
keep us, yeah.
Yeah, so.
What do you got?
No, it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda,
No.
so I can hold them.
All right, that's
Yeah.
fine.
I'm just thinking for, if we want to add this as a category,
And we'll do that.
as a staple item.
And what are you calling it?
Community service announcements.
Okay.
Periodically, we get some good ones that I think are nice to put out there to people, those that might, play the recording or listen.
All right, Jack. Hit me.
All right, so Monday afternoon, I received an email from Mike Dean, who's from DNL Design Group. He's in the process of getting a perk test done at number 3 North Street, which is the site going to be for the proposed senior center.
Oh, yes.
Is asking that since it is for the town, what would be looking for the application? I assume they will not be paying a fee. Is that correct? Since it's town property or proposed town property, the fee is $300, but that fee would come out of Steve Donatelli's budget line item of the Title V funds. So is there a fee for the town?
So I guess you'd have to look at what was done in the past for other projects that happened in the town. As to whether or not the Board of Health had not, or had waived the fee because it was town oriented.
Mhm.
Basically, it's like you're billing yourself.
However, we still have to pay for his salary,
Still incur the expense.
right?
So, and again, in this particular case, as I understand it, local fees for this entity would not be something that they would be paying for. The client, so in this case, the town of Mendon has to cover any local fees. So it's not like there's a business that's sending us a check.
Right.
This would actually be something that it's almost like the town of Mendon would be writing a check to another municipality or for a service that's within
Right.
the municipality. And I believe in the past, we have waived fees for town-oriented projects because it just didn't seem to make sense to
No, you're right.
charge for something like that.
Perk test?
Correct, that's $300.
Yeah.
So, and soil evaluation, I believe.
Yeah.
What's taking place it's happening on Friday.
Friday.
So when I brought this topic up at the last meeting, I personally didn't realize this would be kicking off this quick. So, they probably should have at that time brought up this possibility. As it turns out, they've got a company that's coming out on Friday morning. They're actually going to be working with the highway department to provide an excavator to dig the holes. Otherwise, it would have been an extra cost.
Mhm.
So John has agreed. They reached out to John. He's agreed to provide equipment
Operator.
to take care of that part of it. So
So do we have a little someplace in our budget that's unexpected,
We don't have like a budget line item for miscellaneous expenses type of thing.
Yeah, no, it would have to come out of that revolving account, essentially. Just that nothing went in
Correct.
for this particular expense, but I would say cover it. And just make sure that we have a notation. Chances are we're not gonna run short.
I think we would, as a board, I think we have to also take a vote to waive the fee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I could do the testing.
There you go.
That's right, you're qualified.
Yeah, back in.
That's
the
right.
day.
They're not tapping the resources that we have at our disposal.
And close by. I
Absolutely.
mean, right, she can walk down the street.
Roll down there, yeah.
Oh,
And then Stephen.
they
will
can
kill
pick
me.
you up in the backhoe on the way by.
Yeah.
All right, so let's vote. Make a motion and we'll have a vote and that way it's official. And like I said, somewhere in your notations on that particular invoice or a portion of that invoice,
Mhm.
just make note of it. But
So I'll make the motion, and the motion I'm gonna make is general in nature to the project, because there'll be other visits.
Other visits, then there'll be, Tom Ryder's cost. When he gets
Because
the plans.
this,
the
this
septic.
project is just kicking up, so
Right.
I would make the motion to kind of make sure we're covering everything, that the Board of Health would waive any fees related, to the build out of the senior community center that relate to Board of Health functions, engineering, inspection, et cetera, et cetera.
I'd restrict it more to septic. and-
Septic.
Yeah, if it were me.
Okay.
Well, there's,
Well, whatever,
I mean,
yeah.
there's gonna be a lot. There's gonna be a
These-
well,
Right.
there's gonna be a septic system.
Well, what I'm saying is that.
The installation, the septic system,
about-
witnessing,
Yeah.
you know,
Waiving the fees for BOH engineering and inspection services.
Right,
Perfect.
there you go.
But-
Yeah,
I'm just saying there'll be we're gonna get other invoices
for
for
the town,
But
this
town property.
project.
for town property. No, we're
Just
not
for
doing
this
that for
project.
everybody.
Right. No, I understand that, but I guess this project could go on forever. This project could not happen.
It's true, yeah.
It's kind of, if we approve to keep going in a one broad stroke, we could be on the hook.
So you want to just take it one little piece at a
I
time?
think we should take it one piece
Okay.
at a time.
I'm fine with
I
that.
don't mind revisiting it. And again, at any point, and not that I want it to happen, but at any point, they could abandon this particular site
Yep.
just because they're not getting,
But we're not,
they
we're
need.
not relating it to a site. We're just relating it to an activity. It's not related to a site, it's just an activity that's going to happen.
I think I'm uncomfortable with not knowing how,
How many
Far in
times
the
they'll be
future?
doing this in the
Right.
senior center?
All right.
Right.
okay.
because there could come a point where we could say, ouch. I don't know.
But I don't know at what point, though, you could then differentiate
Go back.
one from the other.
Yeah.
If you start down the road, I think we
I
have to
think
get
you're on
this-
the-
Right, but I
Yeah.
mean, are we talking $300? Are we talking $3,000? Are we talking $10,000?
Well, the initial application will have to be pulled, and that raises a question. Did Steve Donatelli respond?
He says he doesn't need it, but I did receive it today.
He did receive it.
Yes, but he
So
said he
Steve-
doesn't need it to perform the,
So Jack's saying is he received the application from DNL Design Group
correct.
right.
for a depot perk testing, right?
Yes,
And that application fee is $300.
correct.
So if we want to keep it specific to this particular document for now, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think we should,
Okay,
just in case it gets complicated.
It'd be good housekeeping.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know where this is gonna go.
Right.
I mean,
But let me just say this about that too, is that the groundwater there may be so high that they're not going to be able to perk test it.
Mhm.
yes, we don't know. This is just the initial first sampling or engineering element that's taking place. You're right, they could discover things that are unknown. The other element to this is also what a lot of people had concerns about was what that land was used for many years ago.
Cyanide,
Yes.
No, arsenic.
arsenic, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The cyanide.
I know it's not good for you.
What's happening, again, just from a very brief, I'll try to be brief. Saying that was done, years and years ago.
Yep.
It has been in that, maybe in the first layer of the soil,
Yep.
but their well is gonna have to be very, very deep.
Mhm.
And I think that would be very unusual if that arsenic has gotten into that depth, into that. There's another word that's leaving me, but anyway, and the same thing with, the perk testing, I don't, where I'm up high, I'm on the, almost on the same level, and I mean, our groundwater is very high. right now, so I would think that they won't be able to perk test, but maybe down there just enough, you know,
Mhm.
it will be changing, but
Well, overall, from an engineering perspective, when I had and I don't know if I had mentioned this to you folks at the last meeting, that I did have a conversation with Tom Ryder on this topic. Does that ring a bell? Because it did ring a bell with Jack. I'm like, oh, I might have forgot it.
Yeah, I knew you volunteered to be part of the group.
Yeah, so I did, when the conversation started to go toward engineering and these tasks that would be coming up, I reached out to Tom just to get his take on what our involvement would be. And he did confirm that, we should be involved as witnesses to the various testings, which is obviously what's going to happen. The first one will happen on Friday. Steve Donatelli will be going there
Right.
to witness what's going to happen on Friday. And Tom mentioned that, although between the two, soil evaluation and water, he had a greater concern with the water than he did the soil evaluation, as far as that testing and the results of all that.
because the aquifer, that's the word I'm wanting.
Yeah.
Is substantially deeper
Mhm.
for, I mean, it would be 400 feet probably.
Well, there's that one well that exists up there now, right in the front.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know anything about the
yeah,
engineering of that one. Was that a pretty deep?
I don't know, that well belonged to a house that was
right.
near that, not the house that was on the corner, but another
The
house.
back house.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I was curious.
But I mean, I was just thinking of that. I mean, that's a well that exists that they could test the water in that well.
Right,
They could find out how deep it is,
right.
I know that well has been used because at one point there was, I can't remember
Well,
what
that was
it's
the
called.
Dudley house. Wasn't that the Dudley
Well, the
house?
Dudley house was on the corner, the big farmhouse.
Oh, that
the
was
old
the
Taft
Dudley?
Orchard.
Oh,
And then going up North Ave,
Okay,
there was another white house, a
Right.
smaller house.
right,
And that was the well, I believe, for that house. There was
Yeah,
another
you're right.
well
yeah. for
that
the-
served the
right,
Dudley house.
Right.
Or the old
Right.
Taft Orchard
I
house.
always, I call it the old Taft Orchard because I didn't know it as the Dudley house, but yeah.
And they do tap that well, or had been tapping that well on an annual basis when the circus would come to town.
Right.
Oh,
They would use it for the animals, and so it is used in that.
And so, and it tests, it's okay then.
As far as I know, that's a good question, because I don't know if we ever actually got involved in any kind of pre-testing before it was tapped to be used for that purpose, to be honest with you,
For the animals.
For the animals,
probably
yeah.
not.
Probably not.
Well, we.
Yeah, I
don't
know
play
the,
animals To get it either.
I wish I could remember what it was called that usually pokes through the well casing. And you put the line that goes to the house on it, but that's like sticking out. You can see it.
Right, yeah.
It's just hanging there because they'll use a generator
Mhm,
to run the pump that's in the well.
yeah,
but what I don't know, if there's any element of any kind of human consumption, like through a hose or whatever, that, some of the workers might take a little drink or something, and
at the circus
So-
even.
Is
Yeah,
the well going to something now? Or is it just sitting there?
Just sitting
it
there.
sits there.
And there's no like well
no
lock
house or anything.
thing on
no.
it? Says it's not being used for anything? There's
No.
no lock type of thing for
No.
wells? No? Oh,
No, there's not even a cap on it. It's just
No.
sitting there.
It's just sitting
yeah,
there.
okay.
Well, that'd be interesting.
All right, so I would be, fine with waiving the fee for this particular stage.
So back to the motion, I'll make a motion that we waive the fee for the application in hand from DNL Design Group for the work being performed on Friday, January 26th.
Yeah, a $300 fee.
Percolation, thank you.
Okay,
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And like I said, when that invoice comes in, just make a note on it.
Mhm.
Does it come in electronically?
Yeah, he sent this to me like 2 weeks after. the
Yeah,
month's over.
perfect. So just make a notation on it.
Yep.
That way there we can go back to it if necessary, or if, when the senior center does their budget or whatever, they can, get a copy of it if they need it.
It's just speaking of DNL, I didn't know if you had even an
I
opportunity.
didn't get a response back and when I asked him about the
No
professional.
worries. I was asking if they're an LSP. I was just curious, my own
No, he has not responded by
edification.
4 o'clock.
Okay, just curious. Yeah, thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Last item is Thayer Road you wanted to mention?
Oh, yes, a woman who is on Thayer Road, who has a severe handicap at 11 Thayer Road, was talking about her trash not getting picked up, because we had made an agreement
Mhm.
that she could use just a bag. And she could put the bag in her car, drive her car up and just leave it out there, because we had talked about maybe we could put things on the side of the road and it didn't work. So, then she was having, it wasn't getting picked up. And, so I ended up talking to Phil this morning, and, you know, he said, well, sometimes there's trash containers, there's the trash containers up there, and I didn't know what, you know, where it was going.
He doesn't know, somebody left or now there's a new
Right,
resident type of thing.
So, I told him, and he said, that's fine. He would pick up the bags, and I said, once in a while, her brother brings up the recycling tote. So he's okay with that. So I'm just gonna tell her that you know, when her brother brings up the recycling one, that will be fine for her, you know, so she can have her bags that she can take anytime she wants, and then if she has, when she needs recycling, you know, she can have somebody
Will it down for her.
reel it up. It's up.
Ah,
That's the other thing. It's a long way up. It goes around a curve and up to the top.
All right.
So does that sound
Yeah.
reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll tell her that.
Thank you.
Okay. I make a motion, we adjourn.
Set next meeting.
Oh, yeah, that.
All right, our next meeting would be for February 14th, Valentine's Day.
I'll second the motion.
6:30.
6:30,
Valentine's Day, you say?
Valentine's Day.
All right.
Bring a chapstick.
Thank you, everyone. Jack, thank you for trying to keep us
On
on
track.
track.
Trying to.
Well, at one point, I was actually thinking of that. At one point, did we shut off the recording?
Oh, yeah, because we haven't adjourned yet.
Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Second.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Right on. Thank you.